when I get back, I want you to be in the exact same position, but take all the rest of the shit off.
Will you get a condom?
I'll consider it.
Grab your legs.
Please don't do that. That feels awful.
Oh, see, honey?
Thank you.
You have the right to speak up. No, it's your body.
HBO GO, the best of HBO on all your favorite devices. Far, far away from your parents.
All right, go,
HBO Go time! Hey, ladies, gentlemen, and anyone else. Welcome to Cordkillers. Our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you, whether you want to cut a cord or not, can watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on any device you damn well want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and if you didn't recognize me, that's me 10 years from now awkwardly telling my daughter at the age of 20 that she could do what she wants with her body. That's all I could think of. If for those audio listeners, this is a new ad campaign from HBO GO where they unquestionably own the real benefit of HBO GO, which is watch HBO where your parents can't see, right?
Yeah. And obviously, maybe Game of Thrones is a more pertinent example for some people with all of the naked ladies. But this is an excellent example that could also be shown on broadcast television.
Did you see any of the other HBO GO ads that they did? They did another one where...
No, I didn't.
Okay, they're watching the scene from True Detective where, Woody Harrelson is clearly cheating on his wife and he's getting handcuffed up or whatever. And he's there, the same dad, there with his, presumably 17, 18-year-old son saying, like, never cheated on your mom, not once. And then just awkwardly said, like, a lot of times it could have. And then he starts talking about these individual cities and conferences he went to, and his son's just cringing, and it's so painful. But it always ends with that tagline, like, HBO GO, watch HBO far, far away from your parents.
Maybe it's time for HBO GO. Well, you know what it is time for? It's time to welcome Eck back to the show. Joining us today, Mr. Eklund of HockeyBuzz.com. How you been, man?
I've been great. Thank you so much for having me back. My favorite podcast of all.
Oh, hells yeah.
Yeah, but you say that to all of them.
Yeah, you see,
I don't.
What's funny is like I could tell, like instantly Tom went into his like, oh, that's too kind of you to say face. But I went into my like, hells yeah, we're your favorites.
That's right.
We better still be your favorite. I'm going to kick your... Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's waste no time and get right into the primary target then. Okay, so we've talked about this back in the frame rate days, and we've even talked about it recently on Cordkillers. Nielsen plans to count TV viewers no matter what screen you're looking at. So starting this autumn, in the new programming season, the new fall season, Nielsen will begin reporting TV ratings that will finally include viewership on just about everything, including mobile devices. But there are some caveats, some of which are TV viewership on mobile devices only will be credited toward overall television ratings if the digital version of an episode carries the exact same ads and the exact same time slots. Because, Brian, that's why they do this, is to get ads.
I mean, that's one of the filthy things. Like, I got angry reading that. I'm like, well, that's dumb. Why would you make those descriptions or restrictions on it? And then it hit me like, oh, because this is the whole reason that Nielsen exists. Nielsen's job is not to exist as a cultural barometer. Its job is to qualify how many advertising impressions were made every time that people spend money with a particular... And all of a sudden it hit me like, this is why nobody cares how many people are watching Netflix. And this is why, or I guess a lot of people care, but Netflix doesn't care to share it because it's irrelevant. It's kind of like our numbers here on Cordkillers. We only care about one number. We don't care how many people are watching. We don't care how many people are watching live versus, audio versus video. We care about one number. We care about our sponsors on patreon.com, right? And so likewise, I understand why they're doing this. It still bums me out because for whatever reason, I want to believe that Nielsen can be that ultimate cultural barometer for all of us, but it's not true.
The reason we care about this is unless you can charge adequately for ads online, you're not going to see people bring their good programming to online, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons people resist Hulu or don't want to stream stuff or put an 8-day delay on it. And we've always said, like, our eyeballs it shouldn't matter what screen our eyeballs are looking at. If we're seeing your message, it's fine. But this points out one of the complicated facts here, which is sometimes a commercial didn't get their celebrity endorsers online rights. They only got the broadcast rights. So they can't run that commercial on the digital version, which means suddenly that rating is not going to happen.
Well, and it's not just that. And I want to kick it over to Eck here, but before I do, I want to point out some of the things that the article said, which is like when there are certain actors who make sure that their likeness is only attached to certain distributions of it. There are certain songs. We've already had emails from people send in, for example, Supernatural, when they air it on the on broadcast, they make sure to have all classic rock songs every 20 seconds on there. That's part of their branding. But then when it goes to Netflix, they don't have digital rights to those music. So they put in like cheesy copyright-free versions of it. So you get a lesser version of the show as a result. So it's understandable why there are different versions of things going out. It's also understandable why they would decide to measure things differently based on which version you're able to see. But Eck, what does this mean in the long term? Does this harm the odds of us seeing more amazing content online, or is this just irrelevant, more nonsense noise?
Feels like one of those things that is being decided just in time for the next thing. Like it feels to me that's what it feels like. I mean, it is great that this is being counted. It is acknowledging that people are watching on other devices and that advertisers, we want to see that. That's all good. But this old ad model, which is exemplified best by what you just said, Brian, with the actors who negotiated. These were negotiation points. That's what those are, to say I'm not going to have my likeness be used unless you pay me more for the digital rights. Those models, those models are the ones that I think are have to be dying. I mean, we've all done surveys, and they say there's 10 to 15% of the viewers that aren't being counted. But I wonder, I mean, do those 10 or 15% really make a difference in how much people are watching what's being watched? You know what I mean?
I mean, I would imagine they make a very big difference, possibly the biggest difference in the cultural awareness of the property. Think about it. Oftentimes, the biggest evangelist of a particular show or movie are the people who pirated it for free, but they make no difference in terms of what matters, which is the money that financed this stuff.
Well, I'll tell you where it does make a difference. It makes a difference in whether a company decides to go to the trouble to put their show online. If they're going to make absolutely no money, there's absolutely no reason to do it, right? Like, why would we risk it? Why would we bother? Unless you take into account this, like, well, we need to fight piracy. We want to get the word out there. We want to convince people to come watch the main property. And that's why you see these weird 8-day delays and all this schizophrenic behavior about, well, we're going to have some of our stuff available here and then some, but not, and we don't want it on an Apple TV, but we'll let you watch on mobile, because you're thinking of it promotionally. If you solve this, and that's a sidelight about whether actors have given their online rights or not. I think that stuff eventually solves itself over time. If you solve this other problem of, it doesn't matter if they're watching it on mobile or if they're watching it on television, it's the same ads, then suddenly there's no reason not to put it online, because you're actually going to enlarge your audience.
But how many more years are we? I'm sorry. How many more years are we talking about before they do just accept that everything's got to be online? Because we're almost there now, right? I mean, we're pretty much there.
But here's the problem, Eck, is that in order for us to go straight to accept that it's online, we also have to swallow and swaddle and love and hold the idea that all ads should be the same no matter what platform, because these are the two incongruent beliefs, right? We want everything to be counted, we want everything to be out there, but you shouldn't count everything if every person is getting a different ad impression. In that regard, like if I'm Procter & Gamble, it matters to me that fully a third of all these reported views are on, YouTube or whatever, where it's like they're just as likely to see, an ad for 6-pack shortcuts or whatever, some other joker on my content.
Well, actually, I think a more compelling argument is that it doesn't matter what platform, because the platform is just standing in for who's watching. And what Procter & Gamble would love to do is say, hey, Hulu, if the person watching is 18 or 45. And I have a different product that I would like to advertise to those two different people. So I don't want the same ad to run for every single person watching the show. If it's got a broad audience, I would like Pepsodent to run for one person and my candy bar to run for the younger person.
Theoretically, you're 100% right, but we've already had stories where one of the large problems is that, for example, YouTube is trying to enforce that model against everyone's will. They're saying no. Meanwhile, the advertisers are saying, no, I want to advertise on, Film Riot. That's the show I want to advertise on. And then meanwhile, YouTube is saying like, well, you say Film Riot, but Film Riot's demographic tends to be, 15 to 28-year-olds who are interested in filmmaking. Why don't you just buy that demographic and you'll get that plus a bunch of others? And so in that regard, like, we can't have it both ways. What advertisers seem to want is to buy advertising on specific properties, and if you take that away, I don't know that we're better off. I
don't think that's the choice here. I mean, what you're talking about with YouTube is YouTube saying it doesn't matter what content you're next to, just buy the demos. And you're absolutely right. Advertisers have come and said, well, actually, it kind of does matter because we want to be associated with certain things and we don't want to be associated with certain others. But that's not an either-or situation. Procter & Gamble's saying, hey, I want to buy Arrow, but I know you've got an older audience and a younger audience watching Arrow, and I want to be associated with Arrow. I'm buying on that principle, but I also want to be able to put two different products out.
No, I see what you're saying. You're saying that it's not a case of choosing one method over another. It's a case of getting higher fidelity out of the traditional model. Yeah. No, I could see that. Eck, do you have any final thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah, I think what you said, Tom, right there is exactly right. I think that these advertisers should be thrilled, first of all, that they can target so perfectly. I mean, that's something that they want to do, and that's something the internet gives us the ability to do. So that, so therefore, I do think it can all work out. I just think that this actual article, and this is more a matter of Nielsen trying to stay relevant in my mind than anything else.
You know what? I think you nailed it. The biggest winner in this is Nielsen, because they're like, we're set up. We have digital ratings for the programs that have different ads. So you can buy those too. Like, we're going to make sure that we're still relevant in this new world. They're probably the only one doing it 100% right. Because the other thing to remember about television channels is that they get paid by cable companies to be carried. So getting the ads off your eyeballs is only one part of their revenue model. Getting you to pay to carry their channel is another part of the revenue model, whether you watch their channel or not. And that leads us to the secondary target. How many people on Twitter told us about this story, Brian?
Dude,
this was like
a bajillion. I believe that's the scientific term. Richard Feynman said, in the future, a bajillion people will send this into Cordkillers. And I could tell that everybody wanted us to have one take, and I'm afraid I'm going to have a different one. Why don't you set it up and I'll say what I think.
Sure. Well, this is another Nielsen story, but it's Nielsen Research reporting from their data saying, look, the average United States home receives an average of 189.1 channels, and they watch 17.5 of them. We are getting more and more channels all the time, but people aren't watching more and more channels. In fact, if you compare this 2013 number to 2008, in 2008, on average, we only had 129.3 channels. So that's, just about 60 fewer channels per U.S. household on average, and 17.3 were watched. So we went up 0.2 based on 60 extra channels.
Okay, so you hear this, and you would think on the surface that this exactly speaks to the anger that frustrates so many people of the Cordkillers audience.
Why am I paying for all these channels I'm not using, Brian?
Right, exactly. But now, and I would agree if the story was, on average, Americans get these 189 channels, but all Americans only watch these 17. Then the story is, well, of course, then, duh. Absolutely. This is a bad system and you need to break it or whatever. But what if I were to say, just replace everything across here? According to Nielsen's research at the Super Buffet Hong Kong Pizzeria, Chinatown, that the average Chinese buffet has 189 dishes, and yet, on average, customers only eat 17 of those 189 dishes. How wasteful is this? Clearly, there's a flaw to the buffet model. We need to break it out and go a la carte. No more of this everyone. Why are you paying for sushi you're not eating? Over here is like some wonton soup that you're not even having. It's wasteful. I'm tired of subsidizing.
Look, Brian.
General So.
My problem isn't I'm paying for sushi I'm not eating. My problem is I want the wontons, but I have to pay for that whole second bar with all of these other foods that are made by the same people as the wonton people just to get the wontons. I don't want to have to pay an extra $10 just to get the wontons.
All right, now here's the more extreme example. What if the story was just tweak it a little bit? According to Nielsen, the internet has literally billions of web pages, yet our research shows that most people browse 12 of them over and over. Clearly, the internet model is broken. This one price to reach everything model is broken, sir.
You sound like Verizon.
Is right on. I agree, Brian. You're dead on this. But I want to see a survey that says this. How many of those people who watch those 17.1 channels, I guess the point one is the egg rolls, but 17.1 channels, how many of them know what channel they're watching? I mean, this is all about shows now. This is, to me, that's what's even stranger about this. Channel loyalty, isn't that something that's sort of out in Cordkiller world?
Oh my God, dude! If you have no idea, and this is a very real example, as I'm sure you know, we did we ran a special on Nat Geo called "Hacking the System."
Yeah.
Fully half of my congratulations were like, congratulations with that show on Discovery. I was like, no, it wasn't on. It's on Nat Geo. On Nat Geo is where you want to be. You're right. There is no brand loyalty. Nowadays, we're loyal to, to shows that we're able to dig up on our DVR.
But I will say that I think the opposition here isn't so much that I'm paying for channels I don't watch as much as I'm paying a high price and I can't always get exactly the channels I want, right? It's a subtle difference. But if you were only paying $25 a month for cable TV and you're getting these 189 channels and you only watch 17 of them, I think you'd be like, well, that's a bargain. I get 17 channels. Like, okay, so I have these other channels and that's just bonus, right? That is the Hong Kong buffet. It's like, hey, $15, all you can eat, right? But what we're paying is $90 sometimes, or maybe even $100 per month. And that's where people are like, God, it just keeps going up and up and up. So let's flip it on its head. Eck, if I say to you, I will give you any channel you want to watch, a la carte, and you just have to pay $5 a month per channel.
I would say that I want every channel in the world available to me, and I will pay $250 a month for that.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that unexpected. Who had the over/under on that?
Answer the question, sir. That was really interesting.
No, dude, that just blew my
I don't want
mind.
individual channels. I will not answer that question.
So no, for you,
I want the internet. I want the internet on TV. Everything available to me.
No restrictions. I want every channel. I'm with you.
And I'll pay a lot for that because there might be one time I want to watch some weird thing on the BBC, or there's a time that I want to watch something on CBC. I want to watch Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah. Like region-locked sports alone, like there are already people who are probably managing to pay $250 a month just to get all their appropriate region-locked sports pay-per-view events or whatever.
Right. So give me every channel in the world, and that just so because that's doable. It's
that is
doable.
The internet, right?
That's the internet.
Like just let me pay for access to the platform, and then let people just provide me the stuff.
Right. So I don't have a problem with these other channels that I pay for. I just want more of them because my mother-in-law might come over and she might want to watch the knitting channel, and that's cool that she has that. So she leaves us alone for an hour.
I'll tell you awesome. That you just nailed it. It is awkward every time we have my in-laws over that they're all like, "Well, how do I watch the golf channel?" I'm like, "Oh, we don't have cable." Like
right.
Even if you
go
never
back
use
home.
it,
that's how
there is, and this is the part to remember, and this is the very what some people will perceive as the un-Cordkillers-y part of the Cordkillers ethos is that there is a dollar value for the option of watching something that you don't want to watch right now. I mean, that's worth it. When we had cable, my kids spent 90% of their time in the Netflix environment, and that's where I'm happy to leave them. It's curated. They don't really care one way or the other where the stuff comes from or how popular it was. There's no ads. There's a million things to love about that. However, every so often, they would venture out and watch some stuff on Nickelodeon or on, Disney XD or whatever. And that's great. I understand the value of that, and I don't want to take that away. It's just the man, there's some restrictive agreements about all this stuff that just kills us. It's like, it's the uncanny valley
Yes.
This is what this show's about, is that we are in the uncanny valley of almost having what we want when we want on whatever device we want. But the fact that in every way we're not there is what drives everyone nuts here on the show and watching at home, right?
Exactly. And that the fact that I still have cable because I have to watch the Comcast network here in Philadelphia to get local Philadelphia sports. And that's not available anywhere else. So I have to deal with cable. But you know what makes me angrier than having cable? When I go to when someone says, "Oh, you should check that soccer game out because your daughter plays soccer," and I go to that channel and it's green and I can't watch it. That's what ticks me off, because I have 180 channels now. I can't watch this soccer channel.
Well, and plus also, like, let's face it, if there was an easy way for you to just spend $10 to shut everyone the hell up, whether it's your in-laws or whatever, but there's not. It's like, well, you've got to bundle up with all this other stuff and get into the buffet and all that stuff.
It goes back to competition, actually, because there's no real choice, right? If you have a cable company in your locale, yeah, you might be able to get satellite. Yeah, you might be able to have one other option. But these cable companies know, for the most part, people are just going to call the cable company because that's what they're used to. And the system is pretty locked down. They're going to get money from, or they're going to pay money to the broadcasters for the most part, and those broadcasters are going to give them the stuff, and it's a system that has worked for time immemorial now. So why would they possibly want to change it for us? My point about the $5 thing, and Eck made a much better point, but my point about that was, you do for $90 a month, if you're watching 17 channels, you're getting channels for about $5 a channel.
Right.
That doesn't actually seem that outrageous if you watch a lot of television.
And if it wouldn't be outrageous if the internet didn't exist, like you said, Tom, because the fact is we know that all these things are out there, right? So not everybody does, and that's what they're counting on, but we know everything. I can watch Downton Abbey when it's on if I want to, in England. I don't have to wait till it comes on PBS.
Right.
But by knowing that's out there means that we know that they could be putting it on our TV for us if they wanted to, and that's where the frustration lies.
Tom did something that nobody else has been able to do, which is put words to the situation that has me hesitant. And I know this is a very brief side jag. I'll try to keep it under 30 seconds. But I haven't had words for what worries me about the idea of the FCC just being in charge of the internet and enforcing net neutrality or whatever. Just now, Tom, when you said, yeah, you call the cable company, and or like just when the power goes out, you call the power company, or when the phone goes out, you call the phone company. The idea that there's the internet company horrifies me, and that is my hesitation. As much as I want net neutrality, as much as I want all bits treated equal, the idea of turning the internet into a utility horrifies me, and thank you for that, sir.
Sure. By the way, the FCC does regulate the internet right now. The media company lobbies are affecting internet regulation right now. And so what you have right now is the product of that.
No. Okay, but
this idea of changing it to a common carrier is actually not doing what you're saying. The idea of changing it to a common carrier says everybody gets to still own their stuff, but they don't get to shut people out. And that's what the whole debate is about, is the people who built it going, well, wait a minute. No, I want to make all the money off the lines I laid. Or whether it should be like the phone company where they busted the monopoly and said, no, we got to have multiple phone companies. I'm not saying that you're wrong in any way, but I want to tweak that debate, because there's a lot of people out there who are like, yeah, I don't want the FCC regulating the internet. They do regulate the internet. They regulate it right now.
Man,
so
you know what?
It's all about what justification they use to regulate the internet. That's a debate right now.
I feel like I would know a whole lot more about this if I made like a daily habit of spending, 30 to 45 minutes hearing the latest news from some of the most insightful minds in tech news. Basically, if I was listening regularly to Daily Tech News Show at dailytechnewsshow.com, I feel like I would be all the way up to date on all of this, and I wouldn't need you to school me.
That's an interesting thought.
It's my favorite podcast, by the way, the Daily Tech News Show. That is my favorite podcast.
DTNS, FTW, man.
I mean, if something like that existed, that would be great. But how would you get the patrons to support it?
Oh, see, I'm seeing this is thrilled. I don't know if you know this, but Daily Tech News Show is sponsored by a bunch of patrons. How many? Go over to patreon.com/AceDetect. That's ACE letter D TECT. Just because Tom wants to give you the middle finger if you know how to spell. I want to know exactly how many people are supporting and making possible Daily Tech News Show. There you go. 3,938 patrons kicking in enough money to pay for Tom and the lovely Jenny. What's Jenny's last name?
Jenny Josephson.
Yeah, Jenny Josephson to bring Daily Tech News Show to you. We're huge fans of Patreon.com. They make possible the true, the honest, middle-class patron of the arts available to you guys. For example, if you go to patreon.com/Cordkillers, you'll see that we have 1,780 bosses telling us what to do, and we listen. We did a State of the Cordkillers address last week where the two of us talked about how our numbers are doing. We talked about the hidden details of a story of a deal that almost went through but didn't, and we asked you guys what kind of specials you wanted to see in the future, and that's what we're responding to. There's something so great and so honest about removing middlemen and just giving you guys exactly what we want. And we can't thank you enough for supporting us. All bazillion of you.
1780.
1780.
The year of the Battle of Springfield when the Continental Army defeated the British in New Jersey.
That's true.
I mean, what a patriotic number of patrons.
I mean, look, I don't want to tell you how many of you guys need to become patrons, but wouldn't it be great if we entered a post-slavery era of Cordkillers? Could we just get past slavery? That'd be great.
We could just get all, all of. Let's get the current amendments.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Wait. So now you're up to the 1900s. to the.
I was saying, all the way up to the mid 1900s.
Okay,
sure.
I'm okay with that. You
By
ready
next
to move on,
week.
man?
Make it happen. Time for some signals. Intelligence.
Yeah.
These signals.
They're
Let's see
very
about
intelligent.
Google rolled out a video quality report for Canada, actually a couple months ago, but Keith McCallion was demonstrating at the Content Delivery Summit in New York this past week. What it does is shows throughput that at least 90% of the users receive based on a month's worth of data and literally billions of measurements per day. So yes, it's kind of similar if you've heard about what Netflix does, where they put up a report saying, hey, these ISPs are really good with our content. These ISPs aren't. These are the speeds. Except what YouTube is doing is a little different. They're more cooperative with the ISPs. They will actually upsell you to a faster package if it's available that would allow better streaming. So whereas Netflix is the name and shame sort of thing, like these guys don't want to play ball with us and so their streaming sucks, Google's out there going like, you know what, ISPs, why don't you play with us? Instead of worrying about paid prioritization and peering and stuff, let us help you just sell more bandwidth.
So is this a case where, because understand, I had decent bandwidth when I was with Time Warner, and it was a constant difficulty, especially on Night Attack, where we show a bunch of videos, and it would constantly lag out, and that wasn't even a function of bandwidth. Oftentimes, it was a matter of which servers they were pointing me to, and there was tricks. You could go to servers that you weren't meant to, or block certain ports that would convince them that you needed a route to, I don't know, the Netherlands or whatever. But finally, when I switched to AT&T, everything worked. Are you saying that this is I'd hate to make it all net neutralicious again, but I mean, is this a case where it's like, are you looking like pay for play? Are you looking at restrictive bandwidth to particular providers?
No, what this is saying is, if in Canada, and again, this is just in Canada right now, so that they talk about rolling it out to other countries, but they're going to say, here's the level of service you can expect based on what we're seeing from people from your ISP streaming YouTube. And then in exchange, what they're hoping to do with ISPs is say, look, if you offer a faster service that's more expensive, we will show people if you wanted YouTube in HD, you pay for the more expensive package, and then you'll get it as an incentive to get them to subscribe to faster bandwidth. Has nothing to do with what you're talking about, which is Time Warner Cable was allowing possibly a port to get congested, and so you had to trick it into going to a different port, and that's the same for Netflix and all that. That's what I said. Google's saying, let's not talk about peering. Let's not talk about congestion on the routers. Just freaking upgrade your routers, but we will help you. We're not at odds here. We want you to make more money. And I get what Google seems to be indicating here is, listen, ISPs, forget about paid prioritization. Forget about this battle with transit providers. You want to make more money? Provide faster bandwidth. You can provide faster bandwidth. Stop dragging your heels on that, and we'll help you make the case to get people to pay for that faster bandwidth.
Yeah, so I guess basically, and I'm about to ask Eck what he thinks here, but basically what YouTube seems to want to do is give basically a heat map. These are the areas that give you the fastest access to YouTube. These are the ones who don't, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what peering agreements, blah, 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 blah. All I know is that I'm in this area and I can't play a YouTube video without it buffering and driving me crazy. So at the end of the day, I just want more. I'll buy more of whatever it takes in order to get this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Google's banking on exactly that attitude. And that's the brilliance of this, is they're not showing you a heat map. They're just showing you, this is your ISP and this is how well it does at your current plan. But if you wanted to buy this other plan, it would do better.
We know for a fact, and it's not just an empty promise of like, well, you would get more, which is what the ISPs do. They're specifically saying like, our research shows that you can expect this kind of result if you buy this plan. I mean, I think all of us are interested in buying more bandwidth if it'll actually give us more of what we actually want. I like this go straight to the end result attitude that Google's taking. What do you think, Eck? Is this going to make a big difference, or is this more smokescreen?
No, I agree with you. I mean, it's interesting they're doing this in Canada too, because the Canada bandwidth is way worse. Well, at least the people I talk to in Canada. I have a lot of Canadian readers, obviously, and viewers. So they all complain about bandwidth.
On a hockey
constantly.
blog, you don't say.
Yeah, I know. There's stinking Canadians. 52% of them are wonderful people. Yeah, this is the thing. I think what's interesting here, though, in actuality, kind of is what you guys were saying, where you're seeing the difference between Netflix and Google's cultures to a degree. Like Netflix is going on the negative reinforcement angle, and Google here is going on the positive reinforcement angle to try to get to the same place. But this makes a ton of sense. This is why Google is made up of brilliant people. This actually is like Google is very good at win-win-wins, and this is a win-win-win.
You know what it reminds me of is there's a number of things. There was something I was doing in Windows environment where I went to do a thing and it was like, you can't do that thing. You have to type it this way. And it made me go back and type it this way. And I thought to myself, surely the engineers at Windows, when they thought to make this error message to explain why I was windowing wrong, they clearly understood that what I meant to do, and yet insisted on having me do it. Whereas the Google attitude is very much like, okay, if this is what they meant to do, let's figure out a way to have them do it the wrong way, and for us to guide them to be like, well, you meant to do this, so I'm going to do this for you, right? I mean, is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think so. And I agree. I think that's exactly what's happening. And this is also Google. Also, is a big company, and we're talking about big internet service provider companies, and they trust other big companies. So they look to Google as, okay, you guys know what's going on here because you're Google. So there's definitely an aspect to that. They'll actually listen to Google, I think, a lot stronger than they would probably anyone else.
Yeah, I could
Google
totally
as a culture definitely seems to have the attitude of, really what we should do is try to raise usership, and we'll make the money off it later. Whereas Netflix has a much more narrow business plan of, we need subscribers. Exactly. We just need to get as many people to sign up for Netflix as possible, right? And so Google can afford to do some crazier stuff like this, including self-driving cars, where they're just like, well, let's just try helping the ISPs. Because what people may not get in the backstory here is one of the reasons the ISPs say they can't be allowed to be a common carrier and they can't have net neutrality is because they need to make enough money to add capacity. And the reason that they can't afford to add capacity is not enough people are buying it. And so Google's answering that last bit of like, oh, not enough people are buying faster internet from you? Great, we'll help you with that.
They're teaching them how to sell it. Yeah. They're teaching them how to sell it, which is pretty impressive. I mean, that's pretty amazing in a lot of ways for Google to do it. It obviously benefits them, no question about it, but it benefits everyone. So.
Well, and again, it totally speaks to that Google ethos where they're way less concerned about the steps to get you there. It's just, they want to remain a black box. Here's the consumer. Here's what we understand they want. Just whatever it takes to get there. Like, just do the thing to make the thing do the thing.
Even if it means becoming an ISP at certain regions.
One last thing I thought about there. I'm sorry, Tom, for
no, okay.
When we're talking about this, we're also talking about it's good for Google and the ISPs to be talking about things in general, in my opinion, when it comes to net neutrality, because that I do believe will help in the long run too. Google probably also wants to keep your friends close, enemies closer a little bit here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget, this occurred to me earlier when we were talking about cable TV channels, right? Right now, the dynamic is ISPs are saying, hey, we want the right to get, to charge a YouTube or a Netflix to have better access to our customers because that's the conditions right now. But if you remember, the cable industry was at one point in a situation where the broadcasters were clamoring to force cable companies to carry their channels.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
15, 20 years later, they were in a position to make those cable companies pay them to carry the channels.
Right.
So careful what you wish for, ISPs, or things will turn. And at some point, Netflix will say, you want Netflix to go into your ISP, then you need to pay us.
Man, the more I think about it, the more I love this Google idea here. Hey, man, look, let's move forward. You ready to gear up?
I think we should gear up.
Yeah, all right.
with you.
Fine, we'll gear up.
Got not a lot of new set-top boxes being announced out there this week, but it was an interesting story over on GigaOM by Jeffrey Getz, pointing out the fact that you may think is obvious, but he has a really good and comprehensive article about just how much more streaming you can do on an iPad or even an iPhone than an Apple TV. And he's got a great chart in there that includes all of the cable companies in the U.S. And that support what channel apps. He points out the ridiculous fact that on average, each cable provider can only access content on 6 of 10 of the most watched networks apps. But he's pointing out, even in this limited world where you can't have all of the channels from your cable company, you still have more channels on an iPad than you do on an Apple TV. So maybe the iPad is your best set-top box.
Well, and here's what I think is the important takeaway here is for what 3-4 years now we've all been chasing this fantasy of a magic Apple TV that would make things easy to find or whatever, and I think we're slowly realizing that due to intractable agreements it's not going to happen. But the fact is, like, we have entered a post set-top box world, have we not? Like, there's no, I mean, at most you need some device like a Chromecast to link your mobile device, whether it's your laptop or your phone or your tablet or whatever, to your big screen or whatever, and everything. Like, there's no reason for a stupid box in between. Or maybe that's just me. How do you feel?
I've been in this situation a lot, and I know, Tom, you're an MLB app guy, probably on the Apple TV, right? And I am too, and I watch MLB, and I can scroll through on Apple TV and get to the games I want to watch, or I can get it on my iPad and AirPlay it. And I'd rather do the iPad. It's just easier, and it feels like it makes more sense. And so I find myself doing that, and because I lose the Apple remotes, or whatever. But I've got my iPad with me. So yeah, I think that basically this is like the Chromecast. This is what the Chromecast is all about to me. This article is all about. This is what the Chromecast. This is why, again, Google had the brilliance to think.
It's like they figured out that the Chromecast is a cheap, dare I say, disposable bridge between all your mobile devices, all your handheld whatevers, and the big screen to display it. And weirdly, this has been the vision that I've been promoting, and Tom, it sounds like, eventually came around to, is the idea that we want our televisions to be dumb displays that just do one thing exquisitely well, which is present beautiful images, right? So in this regard, this $35 dongle, whoever it's manufactured by, as long as it gets you, as long as it's this gatekeeper that gets you to the content you want, then we're happy, I think.
Although I have to say, in the end, it could make the opposite argument that if Dial or DLNA is built into your television, why do you need a separate device at all?
No, and in this regard, this is as long as I'm not using a UI on my television or dealing with menus on my television, I don't care. As long
you just
as
offload all of that to your external device.
Exactly.
And to tie it into the other story, that's exactly what Google wants to happen. I mean, the Chromecast, they built the Chromecast, but I don't think the idea of that was to get to that next level. They don't want to keep manufacturing Chromecasts and selling them for $30. I think they want that in your TV.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And we see more and more television manufacturers doing just that, where they're saying, "Look, we're gonna build this in. We're gonna build Roku into our TV. We're gonna build a platform into the TV that does that instead of trying to be the set-top box inside of the television."
And then your iOS device becomes your remote control, which is basically what he's saying here. It's basically, and your iOS device is a remote that you won't lose, that you have in your hands all the time. And that's a really good, strong, I mean, people pay hundreds of dollars for good remote controls, and your iOS device is already one of those.
There, you already have the Apple TV, people. Just get an HDMI cable. that goes to Lightning or buy an Apple TV for cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you want to pay some bills? You know, there's a number of ways we could pay some bills here.
Sure.
Number one,
Give me my
first of all,
checkbook.
don't actually show me your bills, please. Our patrons, of course, pay the bulk of the bills, but we, of course, want to thank our friends over at Doghouse Systems for providing one of the PCs that makes this possible. They're still working on the set-top box to be the end-all, be-all of set-top boxes. That is exactly what you want. So if you look up Doghouse Systems Cordkillers, you'll hopefully find it. But use promo code Cordkillers if you buy a Doghouse system. But of course, you could also support us directly. I know last week Tom talked about the Sword and Laser anthology that's out right now. How's that going? By what? Tom, stop reading in the middle.
I'm sorry, I just can't put it down. No, Sword and Laser Anthology. If you like science fiction and fantasy, 20 amazing stories, 10 from science fiction, 10 from fantasy. The listeners of our Sword and Laser podcast wrote them. swordandlaser.com/store.
Right on. We also have, you can support us directly if you go to scamstuff.com. That's scamstuff.com. We just added a brand new gizmo. It's been around for a while. It's my favorite thing on the entire planet. It's called a utility. Looks like a key when it's on your key ring. And I'm not going to suggest that you should take an object that contains a razor blade past the TSA, but I will say that hypothetically, I might have been able to, in the last 10 years, take my utility on thousands of flights and only have it nabbed once. But it's only $10 if you're looking for something for Father's Day. It's pretty badass. It's got 6 different tools, including a Phillips head screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, a bottle opener, and a serrated blade and a straight blade on there. Utility at scamstuff.com.
It's got all that stuff in a key.
In a key.
And a thing that looks like a key. That's insane.
Yeah. A Kia Sta. That's our motto. It's right
Ordering
here.
one now. Ordering one now, Brian. That's awesome.
Are you really? That's awesome. Dude,
Yeah,
that's
that's
great.
amazing. Scamstuff.com, people. If you have not looked, there's more stuff like that there.
Clever stuff. You want to see
Time
what's
to
under
be
some-
under surveillance. How apropos. So there's a Kickstarter out for a documentary called Elstree 1976. Now, you Star Wars fans out there will immediately know the gist of this. It follows 10 people who appeared in Star Wars in the bits that were filmed at Elstree Studios in North London. But here's the kick. They all wore some kind of face-obscuring mask or helmet. And so they're talking to these people about their experience filming Star Wars as sort of a bit character, or in Greedo's case, kind of a big character, but you never saw the actor. And then their experiences later as the Star Wars phenomenon blew up, but they weren't recognizable. And yet they're still going on these autograph circuits and on the con circuit. They want to raise £30,000 to cover the cost of editing, to clear the rights to old footage, to make DVDs, to do promotion, and then they're going to release the film both online and on disc.
I love this idea so incredibly deeply, partly because I'm just attracted to the fringes on anything. And these people are on the fringes. These are talented actors who took a bit part and they didn't happen to be one that let their face show, right? If you're somebody like, let's face it, Wedge Antilles in the original show is just as much a bit part, but because his stupid face happened to be in it, I'm sorry, Wedge, he's on the cover of books. And
we lost Wedge.
Yeah, no, you don't lose Wedge. That's
Actually,
why
he's the one you don't.
Right, that's why he's written into the. Just because by circumstance he doesn't happen to be killed, he's in.
I love this segment where they show all their action figures. too.
Yeah,
That's
well,
so
well,
cool.
exactly, right. And it's like it's just this weird lottery. And these are guys who unfortunately got shafted by the lottery. And from what I've seen, and of course, I've only seen the Kickstarter video, there are some people who embrace the fact, like, are you kidding me? I can walk around to conventions, and just because I was close to this Halo glow, I can sell, autographs for $5 a piece. That's rad. And then there's other people who are like, Jesus, I don't want to be that guy who was a dude in a mask in the background of a whatever shot or whatever. It's so humanizing. And as somebody who simultaneously adores and is horrified by aspects of the Dragon Con experience, when you go and perform, you're a god, and then you go to see these gods in a meat market who are selling their autograph for $20 a piece or whatever. It's so it's so fascinating. It's this human drama that I'm so attracted to and I love. I hope this thing totally happens. Did you get a chance to watch the video, Ek?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, and you know what? Have you guys also seen the? It kind of reminded me in a weird way. This is a little bit off topic, but of that mascot show that's on Hulu. You know,
Yeah.
where it goes behind that. I mean, just the idea of okay, who these people are. First off, that's very cool. Having watched all these movies religiously for years, right? And then seeing, yeah, you know, their movements or whatever. I guess you could make an argument. You know, when you have, you know, I don't know, characters that have been now animated in Star Wars things, and you know, are you actually taking part of their likeness? Are they getting anything for that? Probably not. And the one guy at the end is like, oh man, you know, I know my life has to be more than that. You know, and that was crazy. And I'm like, wait a second, you were in Star Wars. That's pretty cool. And you know, surely this didn't stop you from getting other gigs. You know, it's not like you were typecasted. Wait a second, you're the guy who wears that mask. But you know, it still is so humanizing. I agree with you so much. And there's a little bit of Galaxy Quest in it too. You know,
Yeah.
like that feeling of Galaxy Quest. It reminds me of that as well. Those conventions are really bizarre. We went to Philly Comic-Con here, and I made this giant R2-D2 that my son rode around. It has a go-kart inside, and he rode it around. It has an iPad on front, an iPad inside, so people can see him inside. It's really cool. And he just loved it. And we had, like, you know, William Shatner looked over and says, wow, that's really interesting, you know. And it was just this most bizarre moment of my life to have him acknowledge an R2-D2 that my son and I had built. It was crazy.
Well,
but,
and that's one of the things that's wonderful and perverse and strange about these fan conventions. And I would imagine, especially as you age, in the short term, you think, what, you know, I can make $3,000 in a weekend by signing stuff and telling stories about being on set with Mark Hamill. Sure, why wouldn't I do that? But then after 20, 30 years of that, you wonder, like, is my legacy that I'm going to be the guy who just can tell a story about how he shared a hamburger with Mark Hamill once? I mean, it's like, I love that drama because that's a very real thing that I think, well, I mean, to me personally, I mean, I very much have to deal with that possibility that that's what I'm going to end up being, you know?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah. By the way, you couldn't hear it, but Zach just said, hey, man, I was the guy who produced Cordkillers.
That's right. I was a guest on that show.
Put your mask back on, Zach.
Put your mask back on.
I mean, it seems like one of those things that when you did it, of course, it was amazing. In 1976, you're on this hugely influential film, and even at the time, you knew it was influential. And then, you know, for a while after that, you could see these actors becoming like embittered actors. Like, I can't get anything else. I was on Star Wars. And then eventually coming to terms with, well, so what? You know, this is cool. I can make a couple bucks here and there for talking about this. Fine.
Yeah, and that's Leonard Nimoy's whole career, right?
Right.
I mean, but that's just
rebelling
it. It's not.
against that and then turning back to it later in life, going, wait a minute, actually, this was pretty cool.
I mean, and there was something honest and wonderful about Leonard Nimoy wearing on his sleeve, you know, his comfortability and uncomfortability with the Spock role. You know, writing a book, I Am Not Spock, and then going out and recording a song about hobbits, and then years later being like, okay, fine, I am Spock. And then finally, you saw him in the freedom of his role in Fringe, where he was just on his own terms. And nowadays he does whatever the hell he wants, and he just
nowadays on Twitter he ends every post with LLAP for live long and prosper.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
Isn't that great?
That's great, man.
Henry Winkler's going through the same kind of thing. When you watch, if you follow Henry Winkler on Twitter, you know, there was a while there where he just didn't want anything to do with being the Fonz. And now when you follow him on Twitter, he's like, hey, you know, thumbs up and all this.
He's like, hey.
Right.
All right, it's time now for the Frontlines, Ek. You've been through this before. Do you need a refresher? You good?
I'm ready.
All right. 60 seconds for each story. We each get one extension. And the first one is Netflix raised their prices. We told you they were going to do this. $1 a month in the US, £1 a month in the UK, €1 a month in the Eurozone. That means monthly rates for new customers are now £6.99 or $8.99 in both the Euro and dollar zones. Existing Netflix customers are exempt for the next 2 years. Netflix also says it will reintroduce the old pricing levels, but for that amount of money in the future, you're only going to get standard def and one user per account.
Don't care. Bargain at twice the price. Totally fine with it. If you have kids.
Well, I love that they gave us a 2-year grace period, too. Like, that is smart.
Super classy is what it is. Ek, are you upset by the price raise?
No, I'm not upset by the price raise, but I am upset by that last sentence that you said, Tom, to a degree. There's something swarthy about that. Like, you know, okay, we'll keep it at the same rate, but now you only get standard definition one. I mean, just don't even put that in there. Don't just, well, you're okay. You're a good product. You can raise your prices. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Hey man, Suddenly Communications, a cable operator with 1.2 million TV customers across its footprint, has signed an agreement with Netflix to offer the streaming video service through TiVo set-tops. These three smaller cable providers, RCN Telecom Services, Atlantic Broadband, and Grande Communications, launched Netflix on their boxes last week. We talked about this coming down the pipe, right?
Yeah, well, you were against this.
I was against it at first. I've softened on my position, by the way.
But this is just another. This is the biggest company in the U.S. anyway to do this with 1.2 million TV customers, and they're all TiVos. So it's basically that crappy Netflix TiVo app, as far as I can tell, but just on your crapified cable version of Netflix. So I guess it's fine, and it's good for Netflix because it means possibly more subs. I can't imagine this is going to make a big difference, though.
At what point does it, like, Netflix is on so many things, you might as well just have it on everything. I mean, at some point, you're just not serving Coke at your restaurant for the hell of it.
DirecTV, who by all accounts is about to be bought by AT&T for about $50 billion, doesn't seem to understand why any company would want to do pay TV over the internet right now. During DirecTV's earnings call, CEO Mike White said, "It's not a complex technology challenge. That's not the problem. It's making money." Here's the quote. "It's a question of you have to pay for retrans." He means retransmission. "At what point does the price point become $35, $40, or $45 before you get beyond what consumers will bear? When we have done over-the-top research in the past, it has shown a sharp fall off at $12. But who knows? We'll see." That's what he said. Those are his words at the end.
Well, okay, first of all, let's talk about the DirecTV being bought by AT&T thing. Do you feel threatened by that, or do you feel like that's natural consolidation?
I don't feel threatened. I don't like AT&T's customer service, and I like DirecTV's. That's my one big worry.
Well, what if AT&T could have DirecTV's customer service? No time for an answer. Beginning in June, Netflix will stream episode of Breaking Bad in 4K. The process involves scanning the original camera negative in 4K, doing all the work, including image cleanup and other color grading in 4K resolution. The remastered episodes will also have 5.1 channel surround sound. Here's what I want to know. What does this mean? The fact that they're doing this, because I assume all this stuff was shot at 1080p, right? Like
no, it was shot on film. That's the whole point there. They're scan the original camera negative.
Okay, all right. Well, see, I got excited about this story at first because I thought in terms of, I think that's the biggest, most exciting trend we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is taking, and I'll take an extension in this because this is fascinating to me, is taking old, poorly, low resolution stuff and upscaling it effectively. And not so much, the reason it fascinates me is less for content like this, which I do believe they're going to do very well, but I think about, like, we've experienced 6 years of a massive reduction in quality for everyone who's been taking family photos because people were using film, which was relatively high quality. Then they moved to digital cameras, point and shoots, which was, I don't know, we'll say medium quality. And then we all went to camera phones for a while, which dropped everything down. I feel like there's a massive, massive market for upscaling that kind of stuff. And as a result, I'm totally tuned in to stories like this. Am I crazy for thinking that this is possible, or is it technically feasible?
I think they're doing exactly what you want, which is they're taking something that was shot on film and then was put out at 1080p and saying, well, let's capture more of that resolution from the film and put it out at 4K.
Yeah, but they're starting with film. What I'm saying is, like, I'm hoping for a story where they take something that was shot at 1080p and scale it effectively up to 4K. Do you think that's possible, Ek?
That's just easy done and doesn't really look that great. They were taking 480p stuff and upscaling it to 1080, and it looked better, but that's not hard.
Ek, last
There are
chance.
parts of Breaking Bad I don't want to see in 4K, guys. That's all I want to say.
All right.
During last week's Disney earnings call, Disney chairman and chief executive Bob Iger explained why his company spent $500 million to buy Maker Studios. Here's the quote. "We're excited about entering the short-form video space in a much more assertive manner. Maker's production talent and leadership will create exciting new opportunities to derive value from our content and create new content as well." Makes it clear, right, Ek? Yeah, that clears it all up.
That's really that. They sound like a creative group of guys the way they say that. I would just be like, I can't wait to make exciting, entertaining, and short-form video space for you as well. I know. I mean, come on.
I'm sorry. What were we talking about? It was
Maker is such a creative company. This is gonna be interesting. You haven't been screwed till you've been screwed by the mouse, they say. But go on, sorry.
Well, I don't know. I mean, let's face it. At the end of the day, I don't know that I'm going to lose any sleep if they corrupt Maker Studio. I don't know that any of those properties.
The only words that meant anything were short form. That's like, okay, so they bought Maker because Maker's good at making short stuff.
Yeah. Dude, hey man, TCL is the third largest LCD TV maker. They've partnered with Roku to include its service in its in some models of their TVs. This summer, they intend to launch a distribution channel for internet-based TV channels. They have more than 100 TV channels available and are talking to Hollywood studios to get the latest movies. Here's my question. Is this closer to what we were all hoping, where you would have an instant streaming solution and it's in your hands? Or is this a step away where they're just taking another box and sticking it inside a TV?
Well, I think it's in some ways it's kind of cool that they're taking a box and sticking it inside a TV. But I want to see what those channels are, don't you, Ek?
Yeah, it's kind of both, Brian. It is cool that they have them there because you're still as long as you can still control this with your iPad or iPhone.
And this is going to be launched in China first, so it's a lot of Chinese channels right now. But they do want to bring it to the U.S. I mean, this is a company that bought Man's Chinese Theater's naming rights because they want to make a big play in the U.S.
You're right on. Hey, man, you want to jump on forward and find out who's winning in the summer movie draft?
I don't even think we need to jump on forward because it's the next segment.
What? Wow, that was convenient.
And also, yes, because I'm winning.
Oh, my gosh. Are you ever winning? But I'll tell you what. I thought, and I mean this sincerely, I really thought that freaking Frog Pants was screwed. But number one, Neighbors knocked out The Amazing Spider-Man in the second weekend. Amazing Spider-Man didn't even last 2 weekends. So Slash Film already is having an underperforming property. But not only did Morning Stream win with Neighbors, Godzilla, by all accounts, turns out to be a good movie. This is the last thing I expected.
Okay. So it may be a good movie. Is anybody going to go see it?
I think they will. Like, they're talking about, like, don't get any spoilers. Like, I read an MTV review that was like, hey, man, seriously, I don't say this lightly, but it's very human. Of course, you know, freaking Bryan Cranston's amazing. You'll dig it. There are real surprises, and you should actively try to steer clear of spoilers. I think Godzilla has a great chance at busting 250, maybe even 300 million on this. I think Godzilla might win the game for the morning stream. I don't want to believe it as a player, but I will acknowledge it's a possibility.
When is Ultraman the movie coming out, guys? That's what I want to see. Ultraman.
You know what? The closest thing to mine old spoilers. Man, now I can't say the property. When the movie version of a certain book written by a certain Austinite slam poet comes out, and I know,
who may or may not have written about Will Wheaton and Cory Doctorow at some point.
That's right. Whatever this book is, that's the closest you'll get to an Ultraman movie, sir. That's what I'm saying. Do you know what I'm talking about, Ek?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, all right, good.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Ultraman was awesome. Come on, that was with everything coming back. I just talked to my son about this the other day because for some reason he was really interested in the properties and who owns what, like who owns Spider-Man, who owns this. Tells you a 9-year-old kid is worried about that. It's just disturbing. But he was actually talking about it, and he said, "Well, you should buy Spider-Man back." And I said, "These superheroes weren't always this popular. They were really popular for a while, then they weren't, and now they are again. Will they always be this popular?" Did
you show him the Japanese Spider-Man, like when they were selling the Spider-Man rights for pennies on the dollar?
Yeah, no, I didn't. But exactly, that's my point. There was a huge period of time. I mean, I think I went to 3 schools during that period of time where these things were no one could get a superhero sold to anyone.
Yeah.
If it wasn't Superman, it wasn't going to be made.
Right.
That was the only one that could work until Batman came along, and even then, it took another decade for them to really try Marvel stuff.
Also coming out this weekend is $1 Million Arm,
and that's all you need to.
You think that's all you need to say. I do think it's important to point out that Team Amtrekker paid $7 for this. I've been watching ads for this thing for a month straight. I
have noticed when I'm watching ads for something that isn't expected to perform well, it's because they're pouring a lot of money into ads because it's not expected to perform well. I'm say that not out of any hate for Amtrekker, but just out of my own experience where like, oh, I'm seeing a lot of ads for my movie that I have in the movie draft, and then it tanks the next week. You know what I would like to point out, though? Dollar per dollar spent, The Other Woman, which is Team Amtrekker, they only spent $11, made $62 million so far.
Is that the number one? Oh, it's the
number two to
number
Captain
two
America.
performer right now. I actually think that next weekend, I think Godzilla will do very well, but I think $1 Million Arm will become the number one performer because they spent $7 on it. You're telling me that's not going to make more than make less than like $70 million? They're going to do great.
Look at Chef with its $204,961 total gross. I don't think it's going to be that low.
Really? Yeah, no, there's no way. I think $1 Million Arm's going to make it.
I think $1 Million Arm won't pass Transcendence.
I don't know how many steaks I already owe you, but I'll add another steak to the fact that...
Dude, we're going to have to do all you can eat steak place.
$1 Million Arm will make more than $30 million.
We can go to the Hong Kong
no way it'll
buffet
make less.
for you to pay. That's
I can't see it making less. All right.
Well, yes, $1 Million Arm and Godzilla out this week. Let's see what we've been watching on screen.
Yeah. Let's look at our actual screen in our creepy rape van.
Somebody deleted my line.
What's your line?
No, I mean all of my notes of what I had watched. I have no idea what I watched this
It's
week.
probably me. I hope it's not me.
Actually, I do remember it, though. I caught back up on Arrow, which I've been watching over the air. And man, the season finale is this week, and I'm excited. Like, I know that show is on the CW, but that show has really stepped it up. If you're looking for a good superhero movie, especially this season, even last season I thought was good, totally worth it. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just kicking ass now as well, watching that over the air. And of course, watching Game of Thrones, Cosmos, all of those as well. So that's the ones I can remember.
Yeah, I watched Game of Thrones, of course, Cosmos again. I finally finished all of Rick and Morty, which I should point out is all available absolutely free. You don't need a cable authentication or nothing. I just did a Google search for Rick and Morty, and it took me to like adultswim.com or video.adultswim.com/Rick and Morty. It's man. First couple episodes, it was like shoving a red hot poker into my eye, and then it became like the sweetest red hot poker I've ever shoved in my eye. It was amazing. Also, my kids. First of all, I had to buy Her in order to watch it because it's not out on rental.
The movie
yet.
Her.
Yeah. But which I think we should talk about a little bit in spoiler in time. But also my kids, because people say they want to know what my kids are watching. My little kid is watching Clifford the Big Red Dog, which means I'm watching Clifford the Big Red Dog. But my 6-year-old heard from her other friends on the bus. Apparently, the cool thing for everybody to be watching if you're in kindergarten in my class, because it's not just my kid, all the kids have free reign on Netflix Kids. They're watching Mako Mermaids, which is a low-budget Australian production about mermaids who hang out in a Beverly Hills 90210 kind of environment. They sit out at like the malt shop basically, and then they talk about their feelings, and then they dive in the water and they have tails and swim around. It's I hate it so much. And I've been watching the hell out of it.
Orphan Black, also not letting up on the accelerator, just absolutely adoring it.
Good.
What have you been watching, Ek? Any Mako Mermaids?
No, but I'm not gonna let my kids find out about that one because that sounds right up their alley. Yeah, that's crazy. Actually, besides hockey until 2:00 in the morning every night during the playoffs, we are really into Jim Henson's Creature Shop. Have you guys seen this at all?
Is
I've
this
seen it advertised? I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
It's really good. The last episode is tomorrow night, and it's basically a Survivor, if you can, for creators of creatures and things, and just all kinds of monsters. And every week Brian Henson runs the show, and he goes, make us one of these, like make us a monster in this way, or a swamp monster, or make us something out of this like tiny little junkyard stuff or whatever. And these guys, they have 3 days to create these creatures, and they're phenomenal. I mean, they're really, really awesome stuff. And then at the end, they judge them and they kick somebody off the island, essentially. But it's really good. And they have all the people who've worked on all the Jim Henson properties, including, the guy who worked on Return of the Jedi and everything in between, not just the Muppet movies and stuff like that, but and judging these things and then consulting with him as it goes along. It really, my son wants to be a puppeteer when he gets older. This is his dream, and he loves the Muppets. So this for him is like the coolest thing ever. It made us go out and buy about $40 worth of fabric and stuff, and we bought a sewing machine off of eBay,
cool.
and we're starting to try to build our own Muppets here. So it's great. It's really cool.
That's awesome, man. I love the fact that it's a show that clearly celebrates craftsmanship and inspired design and character and that kind of thing in there.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
All right, time for some dispatches from the front. We also take them from
We take them over email.
side, back. You take the first one, man.
Oh, yeah, look, I just blew right past it. Hey, man, you remember last week I was complaining about how I was trying to watch Rick and Morty and about how the Adult Swim player was broken, and I was grousing, and I was like, blah, 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 screw you, Adult Swim, I'm going to pirate it. Well, guess what showed up in our email box? From Win, message, Brian, giving up on AdultSwim.com, say it's not so. I'm the technology director for Adult Swim Digital, and the site operations fall under my watch. A friend forwarded me your show, and he mentions that he goes straight to the link, and he asked for me to tell him a bit about the problem we experienced, and he said, going by the name of your show, I'm going to jump out on a limb and say you weren't looking at an episode premiere authenticated through a cable submission login, but knowing for sure will help him track down. Basically, I groused live on our silly show about something not working, and the technical director for Adult Swim writes us a letter, which I couldn't believe. I was very impressed. I said, first off, I was deeply impressed to see the proactive response on that stuff. I said it should be noted that once Rick and Morty went totally free, all of those play just fine. My only complaints on that are that the ad breaks don't line up with the way the ad breaks are in the I'll say theatrical release, whatever. But that really everything's great. The original problem I was having was I was using an authenticated login with a valid cable account that belonged to my parents, and the problem was that it would play a segment and then it would get to the ad, and after the ad played, there was like a 50-50 chance of it either playing the next segment or just saying, sorry, it's totally broken, you're not going to be able to play, in which case I'd have to reload it, rewatch all the ads, and again, it was a 50-50 flip. But man, oh man, am I super impressed with the folks over at Adult Swim. Thank you guys so much for doing that. I think that's awesome.
Rob wrote in and said, I'm 36 years old, and I've never lived in a house with cable TV. My parents didn't have cable, and I've never gotten cable myself. I have a Windows Media Center PC and a nice antenna from Antennas Direct with some HD home run tuners. Me and my wife record most of our TV from the major broadcast networks and everything else we get online. I support what Aereo is doing, particularly for areas that broadcast TV is difficult to get or say with an antenna. However, if Aereo winning means the over-the-air broadcasts get nerfed, then I hope they lose. I depend on the high-quality content being broadcast freely, and I don't want to have to start paying for channels that have been free for decades. Wow. I totally should have expected this sort of response, but I didn't think there were that many, and there aren't, statistically speaking, that many. But good point, Rob. Like, if your household depends on over-the-air TV, you don't want that to go away. I don't think he has to worry, though. Do you guys?
I mean, I don't, but I'd be curious to hear what X says about this. And by the way, this never occurred to me.
I do think he has to worry. Look in the middle of July. Just a little hint for something that NBC is going to be doing, and it kind of might freak this guy out a little bit. Just something I happen to know from sources that I have. But yeah, this is I would be a little bit scared. Honestly, I think that could be a play that they just say, okay, we're only going to put, we're going to still broadcast because we have to, but it's not going to be good stuff. I think this is possible.
Do you think there's a part of the broadcasters that's quietly hoping that the Aereo decision comes down in favor of Aereo so that they can suddenly, triple dip and start charging a premium for their content again?
I very much do. I really do.
Wow. Right on. Tony sent in an email saying that he discovered that Yahoo Pipes is still working. So he made a feed of our show, Sans Spoiler in Time. For those of you guys who don't ever want to listen to Spoiler in Time, you never want to be spoiled on anything, you can now do that. And he gave us a link to it. We're going to put that link in the show notes. I would read it out to you, but it's going to sound ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll have that link in the show notes. Finally, Joel says, "Hey guys, love the show. Thanks for the State of the Cordkillers address thing. I'm a huge audio listener." He says lots of things about nice things that we have done. He says, "I like the update on kids shows, by the way, Brian. My kids are burning through Bubble Guppies and Clifford."
Dude, I watched the hell out of both of those.
By the way, Barbie's Dreamhouse Adventure is packed with nerd references like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. If you use a DNS service for your Netflix, by the way, you can greatly vary what kids shows are available on Netflix since the Nickelodeon deal only ran out for the USA, but Dora/Diego and lots more are still on UK and Canadian Netflix.
Wow, I didn't even know about
I'll
that.
tell you
But
what,
I will verify that the Barbie show is wicked smart. Like when they there's one moment where like Barbie is trying to calculate some stuff, and then you see the paper she's working on, and like they're authentic calculus equations on there.
No kid.
It's wicked smart. What was that, Ek, you were about to say?
Yeah, my kids are totally, and I actually admit I am totally hooked on Phineas and Ferb.
So smart.
Such a good show, and if you're looking for something, and lots of nerd references, tons of nerd references, and just a good message, and just really clever. I mean, that's that, and it's all on Netflix. Like they're all on Netflix for free. And the Phineas and Ferb movie with all the superheroes, one of the best things. I mean, really, really good. So that's something I would recommend.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. It's a good time to be an intelligent adult with kids, as long as your kids don't watch Mako Mermaids. I say we wrap it up right there. I know we're running long here, Tom. You wanna wrap us up here?
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Ek, for being with us again. Always good to have you along, because you always have that little piece of insider information that helps us out, man.
Anytime, guys. I love it.
Let folks know where they can find you.
HockeyBuzz.com if you're a hockey fan, or even if you're not, I'm on HockeyBuzz.com. Or at Eklund on Twitter. I do my own podcast daily too, like sort of a version of the daily tech news show for hockey. And you can check that out too. And I love it. I'm actually going to be starting a technology blog in the next month too. So I'll let you know more about that when I get there. But I'm really, I love it so much. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's fantastic. Don't forget, folks, to spell Eklund right when you follow him on Twitter, EKLUND. And that takes care of it for us. You can email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Find all of our links and everything at cordkillers.com. And of course, our Patreon is patreon.com/cordkillers. You guys are the best. We'll talk to you next week.
Around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best.
Doom, 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 doom.